So WWE announced earlier in the month, shortly after WrestleMania, that they will be having their 2024 draft, and we have some of the rules here, and I'm going to run through them. I was about to say something crazy. I'm going to run through the rules of this draft. So, number one, champions on each brand will be protected and are not eligible to be drafted. As a result, Damian Priest, Becky Lynch, Awesome Truth, and Sami Zayn will remain on Raw. Cody Rhodes, Bayley, 8 Town Down Under, and Logan Paul will remain on SmackDown. And then, even though their status as champions allows them to go to both brands, WWE Women's Tag Team Champions Asuka and Kairi Sane are eligible to be drafted. They will be assigned to that brand if they lose the titles. Okay, that makes sense. Friday SmackDown will feature 4 rounds of draft picks being announced. Each round will consist of the brands making 2 picks apiece for a total of 16 picks being announced, 8 for SmackDown and 8 for Raw. Number 4, Monday's Raw will feature 6 rounds of draft picks being announced. Each round will consist of the brands making 2 picks apiece for a total of 24 picks, 12 for Raw and 12 for SmackDown. SmackDown will have the first pick on Friday, and Raw will have the first pick on Monday. Rosters will go into effect Monday, May 6th, 2 days after Backlash France. So, with all these things in mind, how are you feeling about the upcoming WWE draft?
Did they mention anything about call-ups? Or the call-ups
No,
are just
so actually another fun detail. This is something that wasn't mentioned in the rules. NXT wrestlers are eligible to be drafted to either brand, and also main roster superstars are eligible to be drafted to NXT. So NXT is actually acting as a third brand in all of this, and they will be a part of the draft as
oh,
well.
cool. They haven't done that in a minute where they
Yeah.
actually call people up and it was part of the show. So that's pretty cool. Wonder if we're gonna finally see Braun Breaker go up.
Technically, he is. He's on SmackDown. He's been on SmackDown for a minute, but I think it's just a matter of he was in SmackDown and NXT, because while he was on SmackDown, he was also like NXT Tag Team Champion with Baron Corbin, but they dropped the title, so now he's just back. He's just on SmackDown, so you don't have to worry about him being
That was a weird
drafted.
way. That's a weird way of throwing him up. I mean, I guess I like the rules. I like the consistency because I wasn't a big fan of like them switching champions just because.
Yeah,
I don't think there should be any awkward belt exchange because that's taken away the identity of either brand to work really hard for a belt just to trade off your position to somewhere else.
yeah.
Um, so I like that. But I don't have any names immediately off the top of my head that I see being drafted. That's the
Mm.
part I can see, like, I guess within the tag team division they're gonna draft people over, but I can't really like think off the top of my head who do I see being drafted because we kind of lost a lot of major stars as of late
Yeah.
with like Seth and Roman taking a break. I don't know. Do you have any people?
So I have a couple tag teams in mind. I can see Street Profits going over. I can see Bianca Belair going over. I can see Rhea Ripley, even though she's injured, because they said that champions are the only ones that are not eligible to be drafted. That doesn't mean that people who are injured can't be drafted. Um, so I think that we're gonna see.
They would move Rhea
Oh,
Ripley, even though they got this whole thing going with her
I
and
don't know.
Liv.
Anything is possible, because like now Liv is also not the champion, so Liv could get drafted to SmackDown as well as Rhea Ripley get drafted to SmackDown, and then
And
now
then
they're
Dom
going.
has to as well because they're still part of a faction together.
But then again, they don't specify Dom and Rhea. I mean, tag teams are eligible for drafting. I don't know if it's entire factions, but you bring up a point. Um, but yeah, I think a couple tag teams can go over. I think considering that neither Roman nor Seth are title holders, they can be drafted to another brand, even though I think that that's highly unlikely. But I don't
Mm.
know. I'm interested to see where they go. I think that if they're not going to make Naomi, Jade, and Bianca an actual faction, I think that one of them could be drafted, whether it's Bianca or Naomi or Jade. Don't know, but I feel like one of them
Mm.
could be brought over,
I feel like they would
especially.
have their own individual feuds before anything. Pertaining to them, if we're going off of WWE logic, I feel like they're probably gonna pair two of them together as like friends or besties for a while, but we're still gonna work our way into Bianca versus Jade for next year. So I mean, if it's one draft, it wouldn't make any sense to break them up from their brands.
That makes sense. That definitely makes sense for sure.
I kind of like the rosters that we have. I feel like I could see call ups happening naturally.
Absolutely. Now, which call ups do you see happening?
Um, okay, so I've been wondering why, like, even though uh Nikita's been injured several billion times and shit, I've been
Mhm.
wondering why like someone like Cameron Grimes got released, but she stays, even though we see less of her. And I feel like they're working for something with her. I could see her coming up. I could also see them trying to bring up Cora Jade or Roxanne because Cora Jade already held the belt. You could have her work down there with the other girls still, but I feel like we already seen enough of her, and I feel like she could work upwards.
Yeah.
Um, who else do I like over there? I feel like everyone else I like down there. I mean, Carmelo Hayes did a lot, unless like they want to make a part two with his feud with Trick Williams. Carmelo has accomplished quite a lot,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't be mad if they brought him up to have his own solo run because he's proven that he could hold it down on his own. Who else? Who else? Gotta think. Everyone else, I kind of like them down there as is, but they're getting a whole new wave of talent coming in.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got any names?
Ilya Dragunov. I think he's definitely going to get called up. Considering he
Hmm.
just dropped the NXT title to Trick Williams, I think he's definitely going to get called up. I think Carmelo's going to get called up. I think Roxanne is going to be called up, and then she's going to be considered like kind of similar to how Braun was on SmackDown and on NXT. I think that she can be on Raw and on NXT because they teased their day. Well, they both Ilya and Roxanne were both on the Raw after Mania, so I feel like they're both going to get drafted to Raw. I feel like they're both coming up. That's pretty much it for my um predictions as far as like call ups and drafting. I like you said, I like the rules. I like the consistency and the fluidity. I like that certain shows have certain picks. I like that there's just certain things that are just going to be set into place. I like the fact that the champions are not eligible because now you have the opportunity to have certain championships associated with each brand. And now, in
Hmm.
order for you to attain that championship and whatever it represents, you have to go to that brand. So I think this is really, really, really good. And I think it also kind of works along the fact that they just kind of rebranded all the titles. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I feel about the draft. But I want to know how all you guys feel about the WWE draft coming up at the end of April. But we are moving on